Good morning. Good morning. Are we? Yes. Good morning. Good morning and welcome. We're going to kick off the day with a small movie about Startup Village, where we are here. I'll briefly introduce myself. I'm going to be your host for the coming 2 days. My name is Bert van Wassenhoven, which is kind of unpronounceable for anybody who does not speak Dutch, but just Bert or Bert or whatever. If you have any questions, I live and breathe this place and this city, so I know my way around a bit. So you can always ask me. I won't have all the answers, but I can always direct you to the right persons or ask stuff myself. I'll talk a bit more about what my role is, because I also have a role here in the Startup Village, here at the Co-Foundry, because this floor is Kronos, the Co-Foundry. I'll do that in a second. We still have some people who are delayed with flights, but by the time we get to your presentations, we hope everybody will be there. Why am I using a microphone? Because the reason is that these people are live streaming. So when you will be speaking, please also use the microphone. And well, we have plenty of microphones over there. So if you have questions, please, ask me or take a microphone. We're a small group, so we can make it nice and cozy here. Although I'm here in front with a microphone, it's like a cool little group. Let's not make this into a too much formal conference. I don't feel comfortable with formal conferences. Nobody's wearing a tie, so I'm already happy about that. Let's kick off the day with a small movie about Startup Village, where we are today. Okay, so let's Startup Village. Restart. So I thought that was the end. Don't need a loop. Let's see. So next, we're going to introduce a number of the organizations that are in here. Not all the startups, you've seen most of them, but we're going to have a short introduction by all of the partners who are in the building or in this, in the extended building. I'm gonna give the word first to Tom from, is like they're behind there, like Tom from the Blue Health Innovation Center. Tom?
Okay, good morning everyone. If there's a clicker, that would be great. Hi, my name is Tom. I run the Blue Health Innovation Center. I'll give you a little bit of background in the 3 minutes I have. 3 minutes, 5 minutes? You just name it. 5. Stop me at 5. Yeah. Okay. I have the habit of not stopping in time. But anyway, so the Blue Health Innovation Center is actually a public-private partnership focused on incubation and pre-incubation of health startups. So what we do is we work with entrepreneurs. We call it young entrepreneurship, not necessarily young entrepreneurs. Young entrepreneurship, people that want to innovate something within healthcare with a digital focus. That's basically the scope we're working on. The name Blue Health Innovation Center comes from two sources of inspiration. One is the blue economy and the other one is Blue Ocean Strategy, where we talk about sustainability on the one hand and innovation on the other hand. And this is basically what we want to do, to combine these two, to create a sustainable ecosystem and to bring innovation in the healthcare industry as a whole, because it's quite a conservative industry, but we need to do something to keep the system alive. Basically, if you look at our GDP spending, currently we're at 12% of GDP that's going into healthcare. Belgium has a almost 95% subsidized healthcare system. So that's a lot of money going in there. 12% is sort of okay, but if we continue to spend the way we're currently spending, it's going to explode to over 30% in the next 20 to 30 years. And that is just for any country that's unaffordable. So we need to change a couple of things, and that's basically what we want to do. So our strategy is threefold. Number one is we focus a lot on startups. Why startups? Because those can light the spark of innovation in conservative organizations. How do you trigger conservative organizations to act, have an outsider disrupt that industry, and then see what happens? So that's why we work a lot with startups. We are starting from the ideation phase, meaning very early stage. Somebody can have an idea and contact us. We can help them through that first initial phase. We do a lot of pre-incubation work. So where we focus on getting from idea to business plan. And once they're incubated, for instance, in IMEC iStart, and Antoine is going to explain, grab a seat, come on down. So once they're incubated, we typically focus on the vertical expertise of having specific go-to-markets around healthcare and what have you. So that is startups. The second angle is student entrepreneurship. Why do we focus on student entrepreneurship? Because we think that in the long run, if we want to create a sustainable, innovative ecosystem, we need to start from a very young age. That's why we focus on two angles in student entrepreneurship. One is to get the more entrepreneurial students, be it MBA students, economics, applied economics, IT. Those are typically the more entrepreneurial students, at least in Belgium, to get them into the health economy, the silver economy, to get them to focus on that industry. And for the more soft educations, be it nursing, be it physio, be it speech therapy, what have you, all these kind of medical professions, to create a bit more of an entrepreneurial spirit. So that's what we do with students. And thirdly is we work with the healthcare providers themselves to make them more innovative. So we have a couple of hospitals that we work with that hired innovation managers or valorization managers, typically like universities have as well, but from a hospital outside in and inside out innovation, for instance, to create spin-offs from hospitals or to help them to become more innovative in that perspective. So what we do basically is in a couple of steps, like I said, we start from a very early stage, from ideation, getting people to give them ideas. So we work a lot with challenges, typically hackathons, innovation camps, brainstorm sessions. That's what we do on the ideation side. The best ideas, we get them in Health Ramp Up, which is a pre-incubation program where we get people from idea to a solid business plan. It takes them about 4 months. It's not a physical incubation program. It's pre-incubation. That means they can basically be anywhere. We bring them together during a couple of weekends, a couple of sessions. We coach them intensely to create solid business plans that are then ready for their first funding round. Typically pre-seed money. So we collaborate with IMEC iStart. Antoine is going to explain, and we also have our own investment fund that is doing pre-seed investments for the highest potential startups. And then we do lots and lots of coaching, typically in go-to-market, to speed up the process, to get people to market faster, to get a solid business plan and a solid go-to-market approach from a very young age of the startup. Just a couple of things on the fund. Like I said, it's a pre-seed fund. We do 50K investments, which is not a lot, you might think, but we value the company almost at 1.6 billion based on a sheet of paper. Million, sorry, not billion. Just hoping one day we will have a $1 billion valuation in portfolio. Would be nice. So there's a couple of companies that invest here. UCB is one of them, the University Hospital of Antwerp, and the co-foundry as well. That's why we are based here in Antwerp. And the application is one process during the IMEC iStart submission. So just a couple of things on our members. I see that the build-up wasn't what it was supposed to be. We're a public-private partnership, like I said. That means we work with government. We have 2 cities that participate. We work closely with the government in Belgium. Now, for those who know a bit of Belgium, there's lots of governments we can work with. We work with the local government. We work with the regional government. We work with federal government. There's the Brussels government and there's the Walloon government. And if you think that's it, no, we still have the German-speaking government as well. But we focus mainly on the Flemish part, so that simplifies things. That's only 2 governments to work with. But anyway, secondly, we work with healthcare providers and academia. So the IMEC Research Institute, for instance, one of our partners, the university hospitals, a couple of public hospitals like ZOL, ZNE and GZA, and Zorgbedrijf, which is actually a umbrella organization for everything that has to do with elderly care in the city of Antwerp, be it residential or at their home or in nursing homes. That whole organization is called Zorgbedrijf. And then a couple of private companies. So we really work in the famous triple helix model: government, academia, research, and the industry. So Microsoft is one of our big sponsors. We have Agfa Healthcare. We have Inocom around enterprise architecture, U-centric around human-centered design, co-foundry as well, as Bert already said, and UCB from the pharma angle. So that is basically what we have brought together here. It's a unique ecosystem to really create speed for young entrepreneurship in healthcare startups. So that's basically what I was going to say. I think that's roughly within 5 minutes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. If you know Tom, that was really short. Okay, next up, IMEC. So welcome, Tallinn. Just Italy is still missing, I think, no? Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Antoine, so I'm from IMEC, like Tom already mentioned several times, so even more from the IMEC iStart program. Thank you. So what is IMEC iStart? IMEC iStart is actually an accelerator program for that's quick. It's an accelerator program for startups. So we want to be the first investor and supporting partner to scale actually a tech startup. So we're really focusing on technology startups, which have a innovative new technology that which they want to bring to the market. What is technology? So we're looking to our portfolio. This is actually what we're working on at this moment, our startup. So it goes from wearables, AR, robotics, big data, digital workflow, 3D printing. So a lot of different aspects in the technology field are actually covered with our startups. And how do we do that? So we do this together with several partners. We have a fund, so with 2 banks, Telenet, Kronos and Agentschap Ondernemen Vlaanderen. We invest €50,000 also in these startups for 6% equity share, and then they come in a program for 12 months. So we coach them very intensively for 12 months so that they can accelerate their growth during that 1 year. We've done that for several times, and we've just been announced, and we have to say the news now always, that we, thanks to UBI Global, maybe you know it, it's official ranking systems for accelerators. We are the #1 now in Europe. So we are linked to University Ghent, Antwerp, Leuven, and since from 3 weeks ago, we're probably #1 in Europe. So that's great. What have we done so far is that we have 150 startups in our portfolio, so we're busy for quite a long time. And what we've seen, and it's not because of us, just because of them, they have created 600 jobs now in Belgium. This is really one of our main pillars, which is also in our goal of the Agentschap Ondernemen Vlaanderen. So it's actually also of the federal government, that these startups should create jobs in actually the Flemish region. Also, what we see is that they have now 95 million euro follow-up funding. We find this very important that after we give them their first funding, even I start them together sometimes with Blue Health of Tom, is that we see afterwards they go to the seed A, seed B rounds of investment, and they do it quite well. What is also interesting, we have only 6 exits, and maybe the other way around is that we have a survival rate of our startups of 85%, which is quite high. So we really invest in the startups which already have a very nice, which are very disruptive in the field and which we can coach and which we for sure know that they will survive for a long time. And how we have done this, and this is a little bit the program that we have done, we do this on 6 building blocks. So we have 6 blocks in our program which the startups actually can make use of. So it goes from coaching, finance, technology, community, talent, and market. I'll go a little bit more into detail per block. So coaching, what does it mean? Is like everybody has this day-to-day coaching, but maybe one interesting is that there is also what we do is expert in residence. So imagine that we have 3 technical people from university. Yeah, they have an ID, they create a spin-off, they have a startup, they come to us. We see they have no sales experience. What we do is we put an expert in residence in the startup. So somebody who has done a lot of sales is coming in the startup for 3 months and helping them to do their sales process, so that they have like a streamlined sales process and that they know how they have to sell the product, which is sometimes a little bit more difficult than expected. Another one is the access to finance. Access to finance is what we see is that, of course, we have a pre-seed funding of 50k euro, but afterwards we link them to all the main investors in Belgium, so that they, after a program, they can go to the seed A investment round. Maybe also an interesting one is the access to technology. Because we're linked with IMEC, what we can do is that we can bring them together with our 3,500 research within IMEC. So sometimes they already have a prototype, but then they have to go to production, and we want to help them with that. They don't have to look for partners, they can do it with us. So we have software, we have living labs, we have hardware, manufacturing, prototyping. So on all these kind of levels, they can use our researchers, that they have a much faster acceleration to the market. Imagine if they have to go look for a partner, find the right price. It gives a long delay for some startups. So that's why we want to accelerate them with them. Another one is community. It's always switching my slides. And this is maybe also from today, it's because we're all European partners together today. It's also what we're aiming for. It's not only in the Belgium level, but also on European and global level. It's very important that there is a huge community available for these startups. So we do this on several ways. We do this on international missions. So we go abroad with our startups, sometimes to another acceleration program, sometimes with another office. For example, we're going to the US now for the healthcare startups, so that they can learn what is the US market about. What should they do if they want to go to the US market? So really help them that they can grow internationally. As well, we're part of an Euro-IncNet, maybe interesting there as well. So imagine that the Belgian startup wants to go to Sweden. We contact the Sweden Accelerator Program, and they do a study for the startup. Can they sell their product? Is it interesting for them to sell the product in Sweden or not? Maybe there's a completely other government system, and maybe that's not interesting. So we do these studies by the Euro-IncNet, and as well we're working with ERA Flanders Network and Belgium Seeds to provide them all the access internationally. Students, talents is what we see is that a lot of these startups are looking for developers, for example, back-end, front-end developers. So we bring them in contact with international students. Then they can do internships in these startups. It's for both ways. It's very interesting. It's for the international students. They have a first work experience. And for the startups, it gives them a lot of kind of good resources, not that expensive, if I may say, for them to develop these first kind of softwares. As well, we promote them vacancies. And then the last one is the accelerate access to market. Is these what we want to do is to accelerate and that they learn how they can go to the market, and it's really specific program with industry monitoring. And there is, maybe call it a marriage together with Blue Health Innovation Center, for example, for the healthcare startups, is that they have a very good network in the healthcare industry. So we combine our forces together so that we can help these starters to accelerate to the market. And we do that for several kind of industry. So we do it for health, but as well for space, energy, logistics, fintech, education, media, telecom, entertainment, and industry 4.0. So we really focus on these specific markets for them. Because what we say is we can cover with our 6 building blocks 80% of all the needs that they have, and 20% should be really market specific. And that's why we work with these specific verticals. And maybe a last one to end, it's not that long also I've talked, sorry, is that with a quote is Ontoforce, it's a healthcare startup. It's always switching, I'm sorry. IMEC iStart is not only stood at the cradle of Ontoforce, but at every moment it's keep on switching. Of our growth, we will help with advice, instruction in the network, but also great. So we help them in upskilling, internationalization from early startup, and it really started at Blue Health, and then also to internationalization. So there we went from ideation to an international startup.
Thank you. I think, well, we have some more people who have arrived in the meantime, so get comfortable, maybe take a chair. There's still a bit more place there where you can sit there as well. Yeah, there's another bar chair, you can sit there. So we were introducing the presentation. Next one is Netwerk Ondernemen. Yep. So, please.
Hello, hi, good morning. I'm Gert Gevels from Netwerk Ondernemen, and actually I'm more going to tell you a story how I ended up here today. Take you back to 2013. I was at that time founder of a startup scale-up. We had around 10 persons, good turnover, VC with us, business angels with us. And actually the idea was we were going to Germany, Netherlands, and so on. We had money for it. We had a round A done. But actually what I was looking for, because we went internationally, it didn't go so smooth as we wanted. We had a very good product here in Belgium. It was a crowdsourcing platform called Mokum. But actually in Germany, Netherlands, it was much more difficult than we expected, and we were burning a lot of cash. So I was actually looking for a mentor who experienced the same thing as I did, but who had some lessons learned, which I could learn from. And I was looking around for this. I didn't immediately find somebody, so I came across Réseau Entreprendre in France, and they were also active in French-speaking part of Belgium. And there I met Grégoire de Streel, who took it actually who's one of the international leaders in this. He was the founder of Skynet, Keytrade Bank, and so on, so one of the first online banks and so on. And I had really good talks with him. He helped me with it, because actually our different stakeholders in the board were not on the same page anymore. Some said, okay, let's go full force in. Others said, no, let's take it easy, step by step, and so on. So I needed really somebody on my side who experienced already, and actually who was on my side as a person, and who was not in my board, not in the shares, who really did it just for the good of me. And that's how actually Grégoire then said, why don't you start it in Flanders? Let's start it together. And that's how we started 3-4 years ago, Netwerk Ondernemen. So we are a private company backed up by industrial players like PwC, you see them, Pulse, Total, and now also by the Flemish government since 1 year. What do we do? So actually it was founded 30 years ago by André Mullier. And André Mullier, I don't know if anybody knows him, he was the founder of Decathlon, founder of Auchan, and he all took this to international companies, actually global companies. And he said, I want to give back to the new founders in order to learn them how to take something internationally. That's how he started. In Belgium, we have around 11 locations with around 700 persons. So we have around 380 mentors, but these mentors are experienced entrepreneurs who did it themselves and who give pro bono help another one. So free of charge, no strings attached. They cannot invest in the companies because otherwise we are a business angel network. We are not, so they cannot invest in them. They just help them. And we do this in 113 locations in Europe-wise, in 10 countries with around 16,000 persons. So it's more like a movement than really a business. What do we do? Why do we do it? We want them to create jobs. If we want to have a Europe which will survive, I have lived a long time in China, I see what's happening there. I think I told 10 years ago, the lions are out there. It's not within Europe, it's in Asia, and we see what's happening there. So we need to do something in Europe, create future-proof jobs. So we created around 120,000 jobs since we started. We do this just by supporting growing companies. So in Flanders, we have around 90 companies which we give guidance to. And the value is we do it as a person. Like I said, it's more the founder which we help, free of charge, just as a pay it forward principle. It's free, but not for free. I mean by that, we do it free of charge, but you give a commitment that you will help other ones in the future. We help you now. If you are successful, you will do it, and you give really a contract on that. And that's what we do. We help experienced entrepreneurs. And we do this with around 62 at the moment companies. What we do it in and we give them different events where we mix them. But mainly the mentoring during 2 years on monthly basis is the key. And the Boost Me program, they're actually, we don't say that we have to inject them with new ideas. Actually, we just help them to learn from each other, create trust. So for example, this weekend we have a boot camp in the Ardennen where 3 days we take them together, and afterwards we always go on an international program. So we have just now been in Berlin, now London, and then next month in Paris. After summer, we are planning to go to North Europe. So it's not city tripping, let's be clear on that. It's not startups tourism, but really we bring them in contact with local investors, local companies who could be interested, or local partners. For example, we took 10 companies to London. 3 out of 10 have set up a partnership or a local business. So 1 out of 3 really does something with it. And then we have also mentor talks where we give TEDx-like conferences. That's more or less what we do with Netwerk Ondernemen. I can give you one event which we always do once a year is a scale-up marathon, and I can show you a little bit how it goes. It's a movie. Just, hier, ja. Is het erin? Normaal moet het erin. Ja. So actually, that's what we do a few times a year. This was a local one. In October, we have an international one, where maybe where we bring together European countries, where we expect around 2,000 persons in Brussels. So it's the Biennale. You're always welcome if you're interested in that. So what I have to offer is an international network to you also in several countries. We're looking also to expand in new countries in Europe. And what I'm looking for is also, we are going to North Europe, so I'm looking for an ecosystem there. That was it.
Thank you. Meanwhile, more people have arrived. Is everybody comfortable? Yes. Everybody is sitting. Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm going to be the last one introducing one of the partners here at Startup Village. So I'm not only the host, but I'm also here at Startup Village. So it's the co-foundry. And as everybody has been very timely, I have full 15 minutes to tell my story. And that's also, that's not so easy for me because I'm a talker. Okay, so the co-foundry, if you look next door, that's what it looks like. We are at the basis an investment fund. So we do seed investment. We look at startups and scale-ups who have developed a product and who have their first customers. And a long time ago, in startup country, a long time ago, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, when we started, we were thinking about what's our mission. So that's what we wrote down at that time. So actually, we were discussing, we're saying, yeah, we see a lot of hype going on in financing startups, in financing entrepreneurs. Everybody looks, especially in Europe and for sure in Belgium, we look at Silicon Valley and we think like, yeah, that's the mecca and that's where we have to be. But what we also see there is there's a lot of hype going on because investors are over-investing in startups, because investors are throwing money at people rather than trying to help them to build sustainable companies. So what we said is, our why is we want to cut through this funding hype to build next generation companies to have long and sustainable impact on society. So we really believe that we, as a private organization funding startups, can have a positive impact on society by stimulating entrepreneurship and innovation. Our focus is, and this is really from our, so there's no secrets here, this is how we made it up, you can see the way it's written. We focus on business and people, money is just a means. So if you, and I'll get to that in a second, if you look at the VC hype, that's what's conventional in the market. Our vision is to build for the next generation, and we base ourselves on sustainability, people focus, authenticity, the correct focus, so the focus on the business and not the money, and building an ecosystem. Now, what does that mean, building an ecosystem? First, a bit about this hype. I'll keep it short, but this is maybe a picture you know. It's popular. I copied it, remade it from an image you can easily find on the internet, where you have the three phases in entrepreneurship or in startup country. The ideation phase, so the early ideas, people with ideas, then the growth stage, where we are active, and then there's an international scaling phase. That's roughly also how we defined it. And if you look at this hype cycle, what you see is that in the early stage, okay, you need to go through a lot of stuff to find out as a startup or as an entrepreneur which need you're actually serving and whether there's customers for that. And by the time you found that out, you run out of money. So then a lot of these guys go bankrupt. We're trying to help in that. It's difficult to solve because this is a period where, as a professional investor, you cannot take the risk to invest, but there are other solutions. So I'll talk about that briefly in a second. And then stuff starts to go up, and this is really the hype cycle going up. They get an investment, which, and now I'm talking Silicon Valley, these startups, they get an investment which forces them to pump up their value because that's what the investors want, to get a next investment to pump up again the value, to get a next investment to pump up again the value. The result is that, okay, the good news is some huge international startups stem from that story. Facebook, Airbnb, Uber, we all know them. The bad news is that probably 99% of this effort is lost and dumped somewhere, or lost basically. So we end up in the cemetery of disillusion. And then, okay, some go on to build sustainable companies or companies with sustainable value. So that's what we don't like. What we're looking at is maybe we can make a line like this, where we are less spectacular in the beginning, but maybe, well, at least as many or maybe even a bit more, who knows? Well, we can't predict the future, but let's say we want to go towards sustainable value. The big difference is that all of this here, and I don't know whether it's mathematically correct, but this surface here is a lot of money that is not lost. But it's also especially a lot of human potential that is not lost. It's the cemetery of disillusion. Well, there's a lot of people who lose their courage, who lose a lot of money, but who probably lose a lot more of their personality, and by going through this hype cycle, and it doesn't make them better entrepreneurs. Our background, the co-foundry, I forgot to tell that. Our background is the Kronos Group. When you walked into the building, you saw signs towards Kronos. You saw Kronos also on the EMEC slides. Kronos is a Belgian company that is known as a IT company, but has basically started 27 years ago as a platform to help people develop their careers. So, and I was talking to Jeff, the founder, a few days ago, and what he said is, well, when I started, I ate a lot of what we call in Belgium boterhammetjes met choco, which means bread with choco, you know, with Nutella, whatever. It's cheap, you can survive on that. But he said, but it didn't make me a better entrepreneur. And that's, I mean, you can become a good entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur without going through all the pain and hardship of, I mean, not all the pain and hardship, but without going through too much pain and hardship as an entrepreneur. So that's what we're trying to avoid here. That's our idea. That has resulted in 10 investments. Yes, right, 10 investments who are residing often here, but who are also, I mean, Flanders, Belgium. Well, they're Belgium because there's one from Brussels. They're not always here. Belgium is not that big, or Flanders is not that big. So they use the facilities here. They come and do presentations here. We meet up here, but they often have offices spread around the country. I mean, Onak is a foldable canoe, so you cannot put a factory here. They have a factory in Ghent. I'm not going to go in detail about all of them, but it's a very varied collection of startups we've invested in until now, ranging from ad tech, so advertising technology, over hardware. Juki is a jukebox for children. Look it up; it's really great. It's a Wi-Fi speaker which is operated by figurines. So if you have kids, have a look at it and buy one. If you like water, buy a canoe. We have a foldable canoe. There's one next door. You can have a look at it. The other ones are mostly business-to-business startups. There's one in security who did the helped out. And if you saw the what's it called, the Oscar Awards last year, you could see all the security guys with a little light here in their thing, and that their lights were all the same for all the security people. And 5 minutes later, you would see they would all be green, and 5 minutes later, they were all red. So if one of the security guys had a different color, they knew he was not supposed to be there. That's the technology Tikto has built. So a wide variety of hardware, software, business to business, business to consumer. The constant here is that we invest in startups that where we are convinced we can help, we can do something for them, we can take them steps forward. And I also talked about the font has destroyed a bit of the design, but that's not too bad. I said we want to work within an ecosystem, and to end up, this is where we see ourselves in this ecosystem. Not everybody is on there. I mean, some of the players we are directly connected with in the Belgian ecosystem are in there. So we have our own early stage organization, Think with People, which really is a non-profit and focuses on this ideation phase. A non-profit because you cannot make money on early stage startups. So, we just get funding from corporates, in the first place Kronos Group, but we're also working with other companies to help these people in their early stage. This is an interesting one. Win-Winner is an investment we made. There are some interesting, fiscally interesting measures in Belgium and in Flanders to help people invest in startup, but early stage, like loans, tax shelter measures for investments. What Win-Winner is doing, they have built a kind of business angel network, but mixing that with friends and family, where they facilitate fund. The graph of a second ago, this was the valley of death, and so this is when you run out of money before you can go to real investors. Well, this is where Win-Winner comes in. You go talk to your family, but in an organized way and with a fiscal friendly solution. It started off as a student entrepreneur, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and last year they got I think about roughly 40 customers, people getting funding through them for more than 2.2 million euros, which makes them the second biggest you could call it crowdfunding, the second biggest crowdfunding platform in Belgium. IMEC, well, I don't have to say, we are there's some stuff missing there, but we're one of the co-investors in there, in the iStart program or in the fund. Same for the Blue Health Innovation Center. We have a very strong cooperation which started at KBC, which is an incubator program organized by a bank. It's the biggest one in Flanders. And then there's more incubation programs. I mean, this is how I explain to startups how it works, so that they don't start talking to Fortino Capital when they are somewhere over there, because it doesn't make sense, or to explain them where you can find help and money when you're in the early stage. So that's where we, with the co-foundry, we find ourselves somewhere in the middle here, investing as of the moment there is a kind of product and some initial traction. Let's see, one more slide. Yeah, there's one more slide just about the team. The first person you don't see very well, but you can see her in real life. That's Margot, she's over there. So we're a team of 4, running from organizing, initiating, doing community. So I'm the guy at the front together with Margot. We talk to a lot of people. We see tens, hundreds of entrepreneurs every year. We bring them in, select, and then when it gets serious, we get our more serious colleagues in who ask difficult questions, do negotiations, due diligence, and the financing part, and finally structure the whole deal, follow it up, and hopefully one day we'll do some exits. So if you have some questions about the co-foundry when you're running around here this morning or later, this morning, you can ask Margot, she knows all about it. And that's roughly it. My timing is right. Okay, one more practical thing. I have done my first tweet about this conference, or what do we want to call it, and I use the hashtag SPEEDUP. So if you do that too, maybe we can get that hashtag up and trending, and we can also learn from that. Again, I'll be your host in the coming 2 days. If you have, I hope we will get a lot of interaction, a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of questions. So now I have the honor, so I'm switching now, not the co-foundry, I'm your host again now. And next up is our Italian friends, or for the first presentation. Let me get my program here. And actually it's quite interesting what you must be then. Nico Cherry, is that good? Yeah, okay. Well, just a small introduction, because I've looked at your presentation, I was very interested in it. One of the startups Blue Health has invested in, and IMEC, is Play It Safe. You will see them if you go onto their websites. What they do is they develop games for security. So you can train security procedures in a hospital by playing a game. Now, what the games in a hospital, it may sound strange, but gamification is something that seems to be working very well. And I've learned that, and we will learn today, that our Italian friends have taken a very similar approach to entrepreneurship.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nico, and I work for the Lucca Technological Pole. It's the project I want to share with you this morning is about gamification, and gamification for students who have to learn something about entrepreneurship. So we thought that being entrepreneurs could be a child's game. As I told you, I work for the Polo Tecnologico Lucchese, which is a project led by the local Chamber of Commerce. And its mission is facilitate technology transfer and development of innovative activities. So we are two buildings that we thought as a hub for sharing knowledge. We try to build relationship between companies and universities and local institutions. So what we do mainly is to be an incubator with advanced services for IT companies mainly, but also for companies that work on sustainable building techniques or green energy technologies. Among the many things that we do as an innovation hub, so we do networking activities and events. We try to build relationships with local investors, Italian investors. We also do a lot of events. And with the Chamber of Commerce, which is the sole stakeholder of the LTD that runs the Polo Tecnologico Lucchese, we share and activities with the students. The local Chamber of Commerce is the competent body for the Italian law to learn to bring on a project on for students that have to do a stage, mandatory stage in Italian companies. So we try to think about the students. So because we learned that it's not easy to teach a student what is a startup, what's a really is an enterprise. So we try to during the lessons to focus their attention on the main entrepreneurs. We try to help them to understand with many examples, but we saw that it wasn't really working. It was really hard to keep their attention up. It was very hard to help them to remember the main concept, the main ideas about main entrepreneurs. So we didn't know how to do with the traditional learning approach, so teacher and students. And so we ended up thinking about a video game. You know, about gamification, there's been a lot of discussion about it. So we tried to think something that was funny for them. So gamification, you know, what brings on a student attention is engagement. So people get involved in what they're doing and what you are talking about. Video game, if it's a good video game, bring people to play and play and play again. So it helps memory, it helps retaining concepts. And if the game is well built, you can practice really like an entrepreneur. You can act, you can play as an entrepreneur. So we thought that this could be the right way to approach and solve the problem of keep their attention, help them to focus on a main entrepreneurs on what be a startup is. So the first thing we thought about was to have it developed by a startup which is in our incubator. It's a startup that works on gamification, works on digital solution for the school. And we asked them what I told you, that the video game that we wanted to develop was to be really funny, something that you want to play even when you are at home. You don't have to play it as a safe space in the school, so 5 minutes, a quarter of hour of freedom. No, it would be something that you really enjoy playing. It should be based on a business model canvas, because before playing with the video game, we teach the students some basics. So we use all the business model canvas or the business plan structure to help them to focus on the main aspects of the entrepreneurial project. And it should be something that was really approaching the subjects of being entrepreneurs in a practical way. You have to think as an entrepreneur if you want to play and win. So we had it. The guys did, in my opinion, a very nice job, because we tested in the schools and the guys really like it. It's built on, then I will show you and we can try to see if there is a good entrepreneur here and see who make the record. We can play for 5 minutes. And it's based on 4 areas, mainly market, commercial and partnership, production and research and development. Then you have a little budget screen on upper left side of the screen. You have a little shop where you can sell your products. You have to invest to run your company. You have to hire workers. You have to do research and development to increase your strength. Time is a resource. We thought that, and everybody knows that a startupper is doing all the jobs in a company. So we thought that at the beginning, all the functions of the video game should be run by the player. Then, if you go on some function, they are going something automatic. That means that if you are a startupper, you do everything for your company. If your company grows, you can have people that do something for you. So time is a resource. You have to run among the 4 areas to make your company grow. In each area there are mini video games that improve the results of that area. But if you lose too much time doing this mini video game, you get some loss in the other areas. So you have to think about your time and how you spend it in your company. Obviously, game over is a possibility. Failure is a possibility. We thought about the failure when you got profit loss for more than 1 year, 2 years. So you can think that you can have some funds from the bank. It's a little loans that can help you to survive. But if you don't do the correct things, you can fail. It's better than my poor English. So if you want to try, it's a responsive website. It's free. We don't even ask for email. So you can link on www.startandup.eu and that's it. And try if you may you. How much time do we have?
Let's see. We have 6 minutes still, so let's do it here.
6 minutes, okay. Let's see who's the best startupper here. Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, okay.
The first one got it.
That's just Mario Kart.
It should be in English, Italian, French, and English. Sorry for the English, but in Italian it has a lot of tricks with language. It's funny. It's located in a far future in a space base, and many tricks got lost in translation. So we are thinking about how to fix it, but maybe we have to reinvent the whole story. Okay, you try for me. The music can be switched off because otherwise in a classroom it would be an hell. So when you start production, you have a little storage, then you have to collect and bring to the little shop. So you start at the beginning, it's automatics, it's the selling process, because it was too difficult to imagine something else than an algorithm that that can manage the selling of the products, the sales of the products. It's not a joke. You have to bring the products you had in a get back in the production area. Okay, and bring. Okay, you have 20. Bring the cats in the little shop. Now you start selling. Yeah, yeah. Time to market. And we tested in several classrooms, and it's interesting because the students first, the main thing is that then after the lessons and after playing for 1 hour, 2 hours, they get something about the lesson. So they remember about research and development, about the commercial strategies, about the budget. So it's important to help them, because the lesson we do with students is not the proper teacher lesson. It's something else that they do in their educational program. It's something that help them to prepare their stage. So it's not more than 10 hours, 8 hours. So you can work on the basic concept of being entrepreneurs, but the video game helped them. And the funny thing is that they find everyone find a different way to approach their startup. There is I remember a guy that I thought that he found that sorry, it may be sound unpolite, but he found the Chinese way to the production. So he hired a lot of workers. He fulfill his storage, and then start selling and fire everybody. Then it's sort of the localization, no? Okay. What's your? Secondary school, 17, 16, 18, yeah. It can be played as a video game also for kids, not primary, but 12, 13, because the mentor gives the instructions, and you can even play, but you play a video game if you back it up with the lessons. With some lessons, it helps to focus on the idea. Yeah? Okay, you can activate yourself. And if you say about the time, maybe you come back to the research area, and then you can stop. If you click on support research, what I told you, there are mini games that makes research development faster. But if you spend too much time here, you get some problems in the other areas. So this means that the time of the startupper is something finished. It's not that it's something that you have to manage for all the company's areas. And one last thing. I don't know if you have the occasion to do lessons in the schools with students. This product is for free. You can use it as you want, as you prefer. You can play at home. You can play at school. We thought it as an educational tool. Even if when the students play with it, they ask if we can develop I would say an online platform where you can interact with other startups. So you can save your game, but you can interact with others. It's a little bit complex. We are thinking about it, and if we see the the traffic statistics going on and on, maybe we can invest some more. But for now, we thought it as an educational tool that's for free for everyone that want to use it and test with the students or kids in general. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. That kicked off the first presentation with some fun, so that's always good. Yeah, where's my preparation? How do you go about giving secondary school children a real-life entrepreneurship experience? That's what we will learn from, and I'm trying the names in all the languages, but I think this is Stefanie Mensching. So if Stefanie is here, okay, and her colleague, okay.
Good morning, everyone. We are happy to be here today and tell you something about school companies in the state of Brandenburg. This is my colleague Stefanie Mensching. Yes, my name is Norbert Bothe, I'm the head of department. My English is not so good, sorry, I will use this card, better for understanding me. I will start, Stefanie will go on. Our service center is called Servicestelle Schülerfirmen in German. It's a part of Cobranet, a non-profit corporation in Potsdam. Cobranet wants to improve the educational opportunities for children and teenagers in Brandenburg County. We are 34 staff members in different departments. Servicestelle Schülerfirmen is one department. Other departments are, for instance, a service center for inclusion in schools and a service center for social work in schools. First, I just like give you a definition of student companies. Student companies are long-term school projects. The students develop and realize their own business idea. To give you an example, students offer food or school material, they provide IT services, or they provide IT service for older people, or provide event management. The products or services are created and sold in the school environment. Classmates, teachers, and family members usually buy the goods or use the services. School companies are non-commercial operations without a business registration, but they earn real money. That's why school companies the economic action can be assured by a cooperation with the Association of Teachers and Parents. Yeah, that's important while they get real money. Okay, school companies can be implemented in regular classes or in after-school clubs. The students are self-organized, the teachers coach the project. Servicestelle Schülerfirmen is a service center for student companies in Brandenburg County. It was founded in 2005. We are a multi-professional team with 3 teachers, and this brings different insights for us in the educational system. The target groups are teachers and students of all school types. Most students are 12 to 19 years old. Our key objectives promoting entrepreneurial skills in schools, like self-assurance or creativity. Most important for us is that school companies are a place for make self-efficacy experience. This is most important. Secondly, we qualify teachers for the setup of student companies. More objective is the integration of school companies in regular classes. Here we profit from the new official curriculum for secondary schools. There are 2 effects. More students get the chance to take part, and teachers can integrate entrepreneurship education in the official classes. Another objective is to build networks between school companies and external partners, such local companies or universities. Those partners can support the school companies with their expertise, and they can contribute to a job orientation of the students. Thank you for your attention. My colleague will go on.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about our key activities. We counsel and coach teachers and students who are interested in the setup and the operation of a student company at their own schools. And as you can imagine, there are many questions on finance and taxation, on insurance, supervisory duties, and so on. And to all these questions, my colleagues give some answers. They have tailor-made advice. And there are about 140 student companies in Brandenburg who have been in contact with us so far. We also offer workshops for teachers that focus on the implementation of student companies in regular classes. For example, we organize brainstorming sessions in order to find a business idea that could be implemented in the schools, and that in the next step the teachers have to check if their idea is realistic and if the school has the resources to work on it. And one famous instrument that we use and that you can see in the middle is the business model canvas. And I think it's also a very good instrument for the students. Furthermore, we've been developing some more teaching material and guidelines that are freely available on our website online. And for the teenagers, we frequently offer workshops, field trips, and competitions where they can participate in, and where they also can get to know other students and other student companies. And in the workshops, for example, they can improve their presentation and marketing skills, and they can get to know some instruments and tools for their work. Okay. One success factor of our work is the growing network of public and private partners and supporters in Brandenburg. For example, 3 foundations help us to improve and specialize our work. Furthermore, the Chambers of Commerce and Craft help us to improve the DGUT, Germany's largest fair for self-employment and entrepreneurship, offers exhibition stands for student companies. And at the University of Potsdam, we offer workshops for Master of Education students, so we can sensitize future teachers for this topic. Okay, and at the end, I'd like to present to you one good practice of a student company in Brandenburg. It is called Medien und Büro, Media and Office. And it's a school project in the comprehensive school in Potsdam. And it was founded in 2007 in an after-school club. The business idea arose when the teacher for computer science realized that he was not able to carry out all the PC support and PC repair at the school on his own. And he thought that could be a good field of experimentation for his students in the after-school club. And the teenagers liked the idea of starting their own business, and they specialized in certain services and products, like the repair and PC support, office services, and the sale of school material in a kiosk at school. And they got organized in different sections in the student company, for example, in marketing, purchasing, and finance. And in the picture, in the middle, in the black suits, you can see the chairman of the student company. Okay, and the next slide. The project by the time became very popular at the school. And every year for each student who left the school, some new younger members could be found. And for this process, the students worked out a peer mentoring concept in the school so that everybody could be integrated in the student company. The teachers and the students have been offer in the service office, and what we can observe is that the student companies identify with their school project on a very high level. They are very motivated to take part in it, and they are very self-confident during all presentations they give, and when they are at these stands and the trade sessions. And the success of their work has been repeatedly rewarded with quality seals and other prizes for school projects in Brandenburg. Okay. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, yeah. I learned a bit of Estonian when preparing. I learned hüppelaut. I don't know if I pronounce it good, but that's one of the projects the team from technology and innovation. So next up, Edie Shank.
Country, so it's slightly bigger than Belgium in size, but I think population-wise we're about 10 times smaller. So, it's quite a sparsely populated country, but then again, it gives us a perfect testing ground for to try to work out new projects. Okay, great. Okay. So I'm Ede, and I will tell you about inspiring the next generation. Eesti 2.0 means Estonia 2.0, obviously the next generation of Estonia. So just a few numbers about Estonian education system. So this is the overall population of Estonia, and then the number of students and teachers, and just to inspired by the previous speakers who was speaking about the student companies in Brandenburg, then I think out of these 530 schools, I think we have about 150 who do student companies they follow the junior achievement program, and I think this is pretty good result considering that coming from the Soviet background, entrepreneurship was punishable by law. So I think now that we have students in middle schools and high schools building their own companies, this is a pretty good result. But I don't actually know the exact numbers of the companies they've built. Yeah, so this is obviously, being a small country, we always like to pride ourselves in being on top of something in the world. In 1996, we started the Tiger Leap Foundation, which basically meant computerizing all the schools, which meant that that technology became the new literacy, and basically everybody was hooked on the internet. Well, the younger generation. So we still have, well, for example, my grandparents are all pretty good using computers on a daily basis, but I guess we still have a few older people who don't use them. And obviously you've all heard about the Skype story and the sort of startup ecosystem it brought about, and all the other cool startups we have, like Starship and TransferWise, just to name a few. And but obviously there's always room for doing something more. So this is where SD 2.0 comes in, and we started in 2014, and it's a non-profit funded by private donors. And our pilot project was bringing 3D printers to 50 Estonian schools. And actually, about half of Estonian schools applied, but we could only provide them to 50. And that turned out to be a really successful project because, for example, Tallinn city government, the capital city government, had a procurement to buy printers for all the schools in Tallinn. So now almost half of Estonian schools have 3D printers. And as I saw from the previous slides, there were some schools in Brandenburg printing something, doing some 3D stuff there. So we also had some student companies coming out of this who were actually making products, printing them out in the schools and selling them. There was one company who was making these cord holders for iPhones, and I think they sold about 2,500 units of those. But I don't know how they're doing now, if they've managed to build it, scale it to a real company or not. And then we did 2 more projects. One was Little Bits, which was bringing these little electronic components that you can snap together with magnets and build circuits and make things happen. For example, animatronics is one good example. You can basically build objects and animate them. And it's actually, this specific set is called STEAM set, so it's not just STEM, but it also includes arts. For example, using them in arts and crafts classes, you can, I don't know, build some or make some objects, paint something, and then cut it out and animate these objects. And then we did the blockchain project, which was probably the coolest thing, but also the riskiest thing, because nobody actually knows all the opportunities out there. And we actually had some angry calls from schools saying that I actually know that Bitcoin is forbidden, so why are you encouraging us to participate in this illegal action? And there's obviously still many opportunities out there, and all of these projects we are still sort of holding up, and we are supporting schools in their missions. And here you can also see our former president is also our patron, so he was attending one of our launch events there, and he's now based in Silicon Valley, very conveniently. But these were the problems we encountered during these three first projects, and the main issue was actually the teachers, the previous generation. That it's really difficult to do all the teacher training. It takes time, obviously takes resources, and it's not actually up to a non-profit like us to do all the teacher training, because we have state government agencies that are actually, whose job it is to do the teacher training. And obviously if you try to introduce sort of some new technology that haven't been really tested yet, like blockchain, then it's difficult to do the training, because you actually don't have the people who will train them, and students themselves would be much quicker to pick up these new things, because as on one of the first slides, there was actually in one school, you can see there's the 15-year-old kid teaching the teachers 3D modeling. And this is how it works in some of the best schools. But again, it boils down to these more open-minded teachers who will let go, who will understand that in order to move forward, we have to step aside. But obviously, they still need to be there in order to. So the learning this, I think this is the obstacle we are all facing, is that something is obviously changing in the field of education. It's no longer the teacher is somewhere up here and is the ultimate source of knowledge, and then there's this big crowd of profanes who don't know anything. So these days we're sort of on equal par, and learning goes both ways. So this is how we decided that we actually need to get straight to these students in order to have a greater impact. And then we launched this Hyppelaud, which you pronounced really well. I know Estonian, and good for you. So it's like a bouncing board or springboard, yeah. Which again could mean maybe it's not such a good metaphor, because sometimes, you know, people, especially young men, tend to jump into the deep end without checking the surface or the bottom of the body of water first, and that might, and actually again, to your slides, this is the cemetery. But then again, if you manage to get past these rocks in the bottom, you might end up in a really the big ocean or whatever body of water. And anyway, then we had this summer school format where we actually brought together the students who again had to apply and had to have a project beforehand they wanted to build. Like we really encouraged them to build physical products, but it could also be apps or some sort of services. And then mentors who come from entrepreneurial background or from universities and operate internationally. So again, like big companies like GrabCAD, Starship, TransferWise, Testlio is one testing platform, also comes from Estonia. And then we had a week full of building actual products. You can see, for example, there was one team built this physics domino, which was, again, for me, has been 20 years since I had physics in high school, and it was good to test my knowledge on physics formulas. And then there was a team who was building shoe cleaning device that works on magnets, so it doesn't use any liquids. And then my personal favorite was the team that was building a fingerprint-proof backpack. And a list of all the products that was finished, so 12 altogether, and out of these 12, 2 are actually continuing. So one of them is the SafeSack, the fingerprint-proof backpack, and then the Sparking guys who are building this Sparking app that will tell you where you can, like when you go to a supermarket or like a big parking lot, then you can find a parking space if they don't have the system present there yet. And actually, I think in Antwerp, there's this mobile parking is solved by an Estonian company as well. So obviously we have this thing about, we are good at parking. So these guys are now on this guy is 15, and I think he's probably in last year of high school, so 18, 19. And they are like proper startup entrepreneurs already. So this is the direction we want to move to. So we're currently building a platform that will be like our online project, where we can get all the mentors and students together, asking questions, giving advice, sharing their projects, whatnot, and also doing these online courses. And then we'll also continue this Hyppelaud, which we cannot obviously scale too much because there's a physical limitation of space and how many kids you can have at one location at one time. But this is how we are building the next generation. So thank you.
Okay, great. Looks like you are making up from being illegal in entrepreneurship to teaching the young people. Okay, it's almost 11. Oh, we're perfectly on schedule, even a bit up front. This means we have coffee break. You have coffee break till about 20 past 11, so you can get comfortable, get to know, get acquainted. After that, we will have an hour of debate here, so we'll be back here. So if you have questions, ideas, write them down, or if you tend to forget them, tell them to me. I'll write them down so we can have an interesting debate here for about an hour before lunch then. But first, coffee. Downstairs. Yeah, downstairs, sir. So everybody's talking already very much, a lot, so that's good. But to get it, get the interaction going a bit in the group, the idea is I mean, it's a discussion. So I'll start off with one question, so we can get some talks going. If you have a question or an answer, just grab a microphone, take mine. And then we can also register it for the camera. Camera is up there, so if you want to be in the live stream, go and sit here. Okay, listening to the 3 presentations this morning, we saw there's a lot of collaboration between the government and private institutions. We've heard a bit about about mentoring. There's financial collaboration. We can talk about the different subjects, but I was wondering, or we were wondering, all these mentors, because there's a lot of mentoring, guiding going on in the different projects. Is this done by people from your organization or from the government organizations, or is it done by private people and or people from startups, people from, I don't know, companies? So how is that organized and where do they come from? So somebody wants to share something on that? How is it done here?
Yeah, I can start. So obviously, being a non-profit or from the like the third layer. So our aim is to be sort of a bridge between the public and the private sectors at any state funding. So I think we should probably be more effective on the state side or the public, because Estonia is a citizen, so I think it's Estonia is known for the talk to the prime minister. There's only 2 people you have to go through, so it's a really high chance. So I don't know, as compared to Italy, probably it's much more difficult to it's probably again easier in Belgium or the Netherlands. So. Okay, so again, yeah, but and again, we obviously being a Nordic country, we pride ourselves in being very efficient. So you always, you probably never spend time on saying hi and goodbye, but you just get straight to the point, which sometimes can be a bit intimidating for other people. But yeah, getting the again, because Estonia is known for, I think it's the second country in the world where we have. Most again difficult to keep them in the loop. So if you have these longer run projects where you have some sort of state legitimacy and tie them to your projects, but for us again, like as we are now building this this platform where we want to sign up the mentors, and I think it's again when you already have signed up somewhere and you can see it online, then it's again like a certain commitment. So. You can always, like, if you see this face on this platform, you know that this is the person who I can always talk to. Okay. So I think private funding. So again, the same startups. So basically, the same ecosystem is producing new. So again, I think it can be tied to the Skype. Obviously, has created many new companies. So basically. I think someone actually did this chart once, but I think most of the tech startups that now operate in Estonia or have grown out of Estonia have some roots back to Skype. So this has had a major impact on Estonian startup ecosystem.
So how does that work in the other countries? You do, like, specifically said, let's look at the mentors. Are they... You can take a microphone. Please.
We are the service department for school companies, and we get a long-term support from the Ministry of Education. There were 3 teachers. I'm a teacher, but I'm not work on school. I do the job 15 years, and I do it only for the service department, but the ministry gives money for me. And so we have opportunities to get private funding. We work long time with the German Children and Youth Foundation. It's a big foundation in Germany. They support us for school companies, for qualified teachers, and they give school companies money for the startup. And we get a support from the European Social Fund. My colleague Stephanie works for this project from the European Social Fund. So we are 7 colleagues in the service department. It's a classic public-private partnership, and we can match the interest between the ministries. We have a round table. There is the Ministry for Education and the Ministry for Economic Affairs and the German and Children Youth Foundation 4 times in the year, and we speak about the strategies for school companies.
Okay. Other countries, other cities, I must say. How are you doing? Yeah, please, if you want to, yeah.
Thank you. Well, we have different type of systems in Andalusia. We in the Chamber of Commerce, we of course afford our mentors with our own funds, but normally the mentors have to work on other services, and we also try to afford the salaries of the mentors with renting rooms, etc. We have also the totally public system, which is the mainly in the Andalusian and the regional government of Andalusia incubators, which the mentors devote only activities for mentoring, and they are fully paid by the public system. And we also have some other private promoted business incubators, like the ones of Telefonica and Vodafone, which whose mentors are paid by private companies. Those incubators sometimes receive some small amount of public funding, but their aims are totally focused on private promotion. So the mentors are funded funded by private companies. So the three ways.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wants to share how it works in their city or on their projects? No, a lot of private and public collaboration going on. Actually, I was interested. I was triggered also. I had it written down because you were saying there's a lack of private-public collaboration, but on the other hand, you seem to have done quite well getting all your funding privately.
Yeah, but well, lack of cooperation obviously means that there should be like 50-50 funding from private as well as the public, but so far so obviously being in front of or trying to set Estonia as a role model for other countries, I should only be saying good things, but unfortunately I think and the Ministry of Education, well, it's always like everybody keeps saying that education is one of the most conservative fields, and it always takes very much time to do any reform in education systems. And I think in a way it's true, because you don't really want to experiment on your future generations. Whereas actually I was part of this generation that was a guinea pig for an education reform when kids started to go to school at the age of 6. So I was this first year, and then a few years later they discovered that, well, that was a bad experiment. Let's just go back to going back to school, or starting school at 7. But I at 6. Or my kids, for example, they started school in the US, where they went to school at the age of 6, and I think they have an advantage because of that. And now moving back to Estonia, they're sort of like a year ahead of their old friends. But so coming back to this public-private, so I think this Estonian Ministry of Education is sort of has lost its grip in that sense that. They don't really want to experiment at all, but I think sometimes you really have to sort of set funds aside to do these experiments and be able to fail. So coming from the startup ecosystem, everybody knows that you have to fail, and 9 out of 10 do fail. So we should really have state funds for these experiments and be able to lose that money. But again, I think the people who are currently in charge are probably too scared, which is a bad thing, I think. So they should be more open to, I don't know, hopefully, well, I know Europe tends to be very conservative in this field, but this is something, I know this is a bad thing to say in Europe, that, you know, we should set US as an example, or actually we should look at what Asia is doing, because they are moving much faster ahead of us. So we are sort of losing ground here, and we should, we need to catch up. And I think this is, and again, being a small country, obviously you cannot be very, like, only rely on the public sector, because the public sector is also tiny.
Feel free to throw something in. So you're all specialists. You have somebody back there.
Thanks. It's a question more specifically for the people of Berlin, and kind of also for Tallinn. Going back to the presentations, you have like a program which is specifically looking to work out collaborations between students and teachers. But my question is more about the teachers. How do you like support them? How do you ensure that they actually know what entrepreneurship is about? How do you identify them, and how do you like, well, train the teachers basically?
I think that there are two things. Also, we qualify the teachers in the program School with, in German is Unternehmergeist, entrepreneurship spirit, yes. And there we qualify only the teachers. Also, they have teachers they qualify in making a business model, or starting a school company, or we qualify more teachers on one school to get a entrepreneurial profile on the school. Yes. On the other side, we go to schools and speak with single people, single teachers, especially about starting their school company.
Is it then teachers in any kind of domain, like they can be teaching geography or history, and also those kinds of teacher profiles, you kind of involve them in those student projects, or is it like mainly business-minded teachers, or?
Often they teach in German it is MINT subjects, MINT classes. This is informatics, mathematics, and yes. Okay, okay.
Okay, thanks.
But we also have teachers who are no economy teachers, but they just wanna do something new, and they wanna do a project work with their students, and they just are searching for some new project. And I think you don't have to be an economy teacher for doing a student company, because in the end it really depends on the business idea, if it fits to the school, and if the students are motivated to do something, because it's just really hands-on. The students should get the chance to try out something, and to feel that they can do an own project. They don't even need the teacher's help on so many steps, but they can just put their hands on. They can start something, and in the end they also feel like, okay, this can work out, and we've done a good project here, and the classmates want to buy our products. Yeah.
I also wanted to add, as we were discussing during the coffee break, that I think this is a really good example, and obviously you have this thing going, and and the teacher training is working much better than for us. But I think there's also like a problem built into the system, because there you have teachers who get paid by the state who are encouraging the kids to become more self-sufficient, to become entrepreneurs. So it's sort of like a conflict there. So for us, I think that one of the reasons why we're sort of trying to get past the teachers filter is and only using the people who have actual experience in entrepreneurship is because for kids, I think the examples or the personal inspiration is very important, like the good sort of stories there. And it's always, I think, easier to set an example by what you do instead of what you say. So I'm not trying to diminish the importance of teachers, but I think for our project, or maybe it's just the specificity of Estonian teachers, because I know there's, for example, there's this platform Edmodo, which is, they're Indian founders, and obviously they operate in Silicon Valley. And as I was talking to them, they said that there's an interesting cultural pattern. They've noticed that countries from Eastern Europe and Japan are very similar in that sense, that the teachers don't want to share their whatever materials they have put together, whereas like in the US and Western Europe, it's like people are very eager to share. If I have something, I want to show it to everyone. But I don't know if what the explanation to that would be. So again, we are here struggling with all the projects we've done. We've always encouraged the teachers to share whatever things they're doing in their schools, like setting up Facebook groups and special websites or whatnot, but they never want to share whatever they do. I don't know why.
I have a good example that teachers can be very dynamic, because my son just has won with his team the Antwerp, how do you say it? The student entrepreneurship for Antwerp. And his teacher, he worked together during the weekend 3 times, 2 hours with his teacher during the weekend. So it was surprising for me too, that the teacher was so involved in the project. But what I was asking myself is, I hear it's on project, it can be as well as on project basis, as it's also in the curriculum or for some students, and here also with the game. It's in order to discover which students have interest to start up an enterprise, or is it for the students who already have chosen a direction of entrepreneurship? That's what I was wondering.
About the video game, I was talking before. It's an idea we had because we saw that the lessons that we do as a polo, technological polo in the classrooms, are something that students have to do as a classroom. It's not a workshop after school that they choose to do. I saw that when a student can choose a workshop after the regular lessons, you don't need to engage them. They are already engaged because they are interested. I've seen pitch, presentation from students on their works on robotics that were much more convincing, much more engaging than other pitches I've seen from startuppers. So students, when they can do the things they really like, they don't need to be engaged. Another example, I met a young guy of 17 years old, so he was still in school, that developed a video game by himself during the summer. And I brought him to a local video game producer, and they had an agreement, and they are developing the game to have it on the market. So this is a young entrepreneur, this is a natural entrepreneur. So when the school is able to satisfy the how to say the talenti, the skills, the natural skills of the students. The students move by themselves, they run by themselves. Otherwise, when they have to do something like what we do, so lesson to a classroom that they have to do during the regular program of lessons, they don't know if they are interested. They need to be engaged. They need to be involved in the lesson. So the video game was something that we use as a tool for raise their attention, keep their mind on the subject, and help them to remember the few things they need to know about what an enterprise is when they go to do a stage. So it's not how to say a motivational tool. It's more for us educational tool. It's something that we use to help them to focus and to remind, to be engaged. So it's not something that they use for think about themselves as an entrepreneur or if they like to be an entrepreneur. It's something that they use because help us to keep the lesson, how to say, useful. Yes, I got the feedback, and they like it, and because while they play the video game, we are still in the classroom. It's not something that we use just not to make our work, but it's just to make it better. So we stay in the classroom, we interact with the students, we ask them, what are you doing? Have you seen the effect of what you do in this area? I say commercial area on the production. Have you seen how do you spend your time? How do you manage your time doing all the activities? So it's something that we use as a really educational tool. The feedback is quite positive because when they play all together, I use it to I'd say challenging them. Let's see who's the best entrepreneur. Let's see who's the worst, and it makes everything funnier and engaging. And I told you before that there are different approaches to the video game, so to the startupping, and there was the guy that really produce a lot and then fire everybody and sell and hiring everybody once more. Or there are guys that work, so they are really focused on research and development. They think that if they do better things, they probably sell better than the others. So it's really interesting to see while they play how do they manage their own company and use those information to share with the classroom and bring them to a collective discussion. It's interesting but they also like the game, that they get engaged, they let's say they enjoy, they give also critics feedbacks to improve it. It's interesting, but it's not in my opinion, in my humble opinion, it's not something that you can use for the orientation, for help them to choose what will be their career. It's something light. It's a very it's more, let's say, it's not to understand as an orientation tool. It doesn't have the structure to help you to understand if you are really an entrepreneur. It's more the project your project is more interesting because it's real. So that they understand.
I suppose if you are playing your game and you are more R&D, maybe you say, oh, maybe that should be a direction.
I was actually wondering if the game itself is an open platform. So the guys who are, as you mentioned, there was one guy who was into building computer games. So can they actually develop the game itself? No,
it's actually not. But really, it's an idea we had last year, just to make our lesson much more interesting. And now we saw by the feedbacks that can be suggestions that can really can be developed in different way. That's a good idea. You can be like a sort of Minecraft, an open platform where you can develop. I never thought about it. I will keep a note and or make it like an online game. And I don't know. I'm interested. I'm very glad to be here today and share it with you, because I got some feedback that I didn't had since now. Not even from the teachers. I remember a teacher of literature that while the game was going on said it was better to read Manzoni. Okay, I agree. I admit I read it again when I was 45. I read it again and I love it. But Word is not just this. The guys have the students have to read Manzoni. I agree, but even something else may be helpful for the growth. But for the orientation, I see that the activities like robotics workshop, Coder Dojo, really help them to understand if they like that subject. Yeah, more than the video game, in my opinion. But
I wouldn't underestimate it, honestly. I was just playing, but and I thought it has a lot of the very core things about building a company in it: time, money, priorities. I mean, that's probably sums up the most important things about entrepreneurship.
Yeah. But you see, I'm very good also in Tomb Raider, but I don't think that my life is being like Sarah Croft with the pants. Okay, but it's a good idea. It's a good
illustration. I think you can use it to explain to young people.
It's something
this is what it's about.
I didn't see, and you see, but maybe you are right more than me. Really, because
deep
I had to solve a problem immediately, with the video game. And now you give a perspective I didn't have. So I'm joking, but really, maybe you are right more than me. Yeah. Anyway, the idea is how I can get this feedback, because a guy can think that's really funny. I want to be a startup in my near future, but how can I manage? I can get this feedback. This may be interesting. I don't think if I go and ask, I get the real feedback. I don't know. It's very interesting what you're telling me. Thank you, Besnik. I got really lot of useful information.
I think it's something you can build on. So I was also like, it's great that it's low entry barrier. You don't have to. You just can play.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you could, if people who really like to play it, if you can build it a bit longer, and people really who play it all the time, they can register. You keep their names. You keep them informed. Hey, hey, maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. So there's opportunity.
This is an option, because I told you it has been a very cheap project. We spent I think 6,000-7,000 euros to have it developed with the concept, etc. So it's not much money, and we wanted to test it with the students. Let's see if it's interesting, if they like it. So that was the step one. This is the step two in my mind. Listen what the people that do the same job or work in the same sector that I do, what they think about the video game. If you told me it's not really cool, it's not really useful, I can stop here. You told me it could be an open platform. That's really interesting. You say that may be something that students can really use for their orientation. That's also very, very interesting. So the option is to continue the developing as we thought at the beginning, and see if it can be used in two modes. One, just like now, for free for the schools, for really a tool that can be shared with anyone that want to see how it works, and then a more different mode with the registration or also with a small payment where you can have some more functions like save the every match, save every game, interact with other startups. It's also this one. It's an option. But the open platform really interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's a business there. We have a new startup.
In Lucca we have a very important festival for video gaming and comics, Lucca Comics and Games, and we had every year we have a stand and we do a contest for startups or teams that develop a video game and want to show to the public. And we brought our video game, and we understand from many feedback that it could be a business, a small business, but we are a private company held by a chamber of commerce, which is public in Italy. So I'm not interested to develop it as a product. I'm more interested to develop it as a tool for the school, for the students. Thank you.
Okay. More questions? I was wondering, talking about the game and all the other initiatives, what could be ways, or do you use ways to kind of build these initiatives into, well, I would call it an ecosystem or a network, in a sense that once they've finished the game, once they've finished the what's it called again? The Schulenfirma. Once they've finished, or they have a startup, or they think about a startup, do you work together with other organizations, or how could you like pass them on, because and maybe let them grow on, or are you working on that, thinking about that? What are your ideas about that? In passing on this ambitious young people who have signaled, yes, I might be doing something, like what could be their next step? Or is that difficult, maybe? It could be that you say, any ideas on that?
So I have an idea. So instead of just doing the mentoring, where the mentor comes in and talks to the student company or the group of students for, let's say, an hour, we want to engage these mentors on a longer term basis. So I always find that instead of, I don't know, going to the school, it's much more efficient if you take the students to the actual company, where they see the working environment and also different stages of whatever product building there's going on. So I would take this mentoring a step further, so they would actually become sort of like step parents for these kids. So they are sort of in charge. I know it's a lot to ask from, and time is always actually much more valuable than money for these startups. But if they manage to find this time and take these companies, and I've seen, we've taken some of the student groups to these companies, and it has a major impact to those students to see how these people actually work, just to get the idea of the work environment. I think it's like if you brought some high school students here, I think did that. Okay, so you see their face. Even like Skype is no longer a startup, but I've taken a few kids, for them it's so inspiring, and it's like, I also want to build big things, and this is where I want to work someday. So I think this is
it's sometimes I've been asked the same. You say, if you find some students who are interested in being an entrepreneur, what would you do with your services as a polo technological? But this is purely personal. I have a big doubt about the maturity, because I've seen that our startups, as an average, are 30, 32 years old. They have a university degree. They have 2-3 years of qualified experience, more than 3 years of experience, but qualified are the 2-3 last years. They work in a larger company, and it's difficult even for them. In our incubator, the business model we have is more like yours than the scale up. We are a small town. We don't have that kind of business proposal. But for students, what I'm wondering is if he's ready for all the soft skills, if he has all the soft skills that are needed to run a startup. When I met the guy, the young guy that developed the video game, the first thing I told him, okay, so you're brilliant, your video game is really, really interesting, but I want to talk with your parents. Because I don't want to be the one that grow impossible dreams in your head. And the parents appreciated. We became sort of we had a friendly relationship, and they've been very, very forward-looking. They helped the guy to sign an agreement. They had my consultancy for the some strategical aspects, but I would say it's very risky to bring very young people with no professional experience to create a startup. I don't know if it's just my personal doubt or there are experiences that shows the exact opposite. So you can be a startup even at 18. I don't know. It's just my personal thought.
Yeah, well, we have some specific cases in which the entrepreneurial attitude of some young people were so interesting, and also in particular students who were not good at school, that their parents were totally discouraged about the possibilities of their children. Of their son or daughter, and then when that student went home and told their parents, "I've been selected for this championship of entrepreneurship with some activities similar to the ones you have described here," their parents didn't realize that that could be true, because maybe their child was very bad at any other school issues, but he or she was especially good at this. So in these particular cases, we try to encourage them to follow up, and also we talk, of course, with the parents, because it's something very important, but when their parents see that their children are especially good at entrepreneurship, or maybe something with software or something with other technical or managerial attitudes, they are convinced when they can see their children in that work, so they support them very, very well. In particular cases, in some others, we support them, but trying to get to support them on entrepreneurial attitudes in general, not intending that they would be entrepreneurs just when they leave school, but we try them to acquire entrepreneurial attitudes for life, and maybe to be entrepreneur within a company, or maybe to entrepreneur afterwards. But we initially don't try them to be entrepreneurs after the school, except in these particular cases in which they are especially good on something, and they are not good at other school issues.
I just wanted to add up that it's just sowing the seeds. It's sometimes, we had this kid in our summer school who was really talented. He was a good programmer, and he was telling me, "I'm sorry, I have to leave like on the third day. I cannot participate in the rest of the program because my mom needs me to water the plants in our summer house." It's like in your case, the parents were very understanding, but sometimes the parents are not that understanding, and they want to push that kid to go through this regular school program and to whatever, like at least get mediocre results, whereas the kid's talent actually lies somewhere beyond these traditional fields. So again, but I think this is again when we have managed to plant that seed, then maybe he has to hold back a few years, but we will get there eventually.
Maybe the cases, the singular cases where you see someone particularly skilled, we don't have a process. So we have to be able to get them out of the process and see step by step what we can do for them. I don't know if you have a process for the kind of guys or girls that are particularly skilled for being entrepreneurs, or if you treat them as singular cases. I treat each one as a singular case. I just had one, maybe two. The strongest is these guys with the game, but usually it's not like older startup that you have mentorship, you have consultancy. Step by step, you help them to focus the ideas, running the company and be incubated. In this case, I move step by step and see what happens. It's like sowing the seed, but if you have a bigger plan, say, okay, now what can I do? This is the problem.
Yeah, well, in our case, we don't have a regular program for school children, but we usually organize some events with secondary school students in cooperation with the secondary schools which want to participate in these activities. We call them as pilot activities because they are not funded. We do just to promote entrepreneurial spirit in secondary education, but it is not a regular program. And with these pilot activities we are doing with secondary school, we organize some kind of championship of entrepreneurship, similar to some that you have described here before as well. But we do not organize regularly, just in some particular agreements with the secondary school, with particular secondary schools. And when we organize this championship, we provide some keys to the schools, to the teachers. They later on work in the classes with the teachers, of course, who want to participate in this, as I pointed out before. And later on, they make in groups, some ideas rise, and the better ideas go to some other bigger championship with the winners of other secondary schools. All together work, and the winning ideas also go to some other event, a startup weekend we organize with real entrepreneurs. And in those bigger championships organized within the startup weekend, those students, it is when we notice that they are especially good, because also all their experiences are recorded, and they also motivate their colleagues at the school, because they have the commitment of talking about their experiences in the entrepreneurship environment they have known. So we have had some cases that after even not winning in the end, but being among other real entrepreneurs, that the companies have wanted to hire those people, even with 17 years old or something like that. Or in some occasions, big companies have told us, I would like to tell that boy that when he finished school, we will hire them. So, and we contact their parents and the company, because they told, when you finish the school, come to us. And who are not good at the regular subjects, but they are specifically good at software or technical skill or managerial skill, moving groups and promoting motivation among colleagues. So that's more or less the way we work.
Okay. Any more questions? If not, I was wondering, there's been a lot about gaming and games, and we've talked a lot about it. Do the girls play games? We have a very nice spread here of men, women, but I was wondering, so that's one I was wondering about. So how do you go with and I have a question for you. I was wondering how you explain blockchain to teachers and kids, but
You should learn the students at the
They can teach the teachers. Okay, we have lunch now downstairs again. Important, at 1:30 we have to be outside for the bus. So 20 past we assemble downstairs, I think. Ah, yeah, you can leave your stuff here. So we come back here 20 past 1.
Because at 1:30 the bus is picking us up. So
Yeah.
if everyone can return to here 20 past 1.
Also, maybe one more general announcement. We still have to sign the attendance sheet. So just pass by Hera in the entrance, and then you can sign it.
We have exactly 1 hour.
You have exactly 1 hour for lunch.
And the lunch is
It's downstairs. So it's